We bring in 3D Dennis Scott and our general manager, Billy King, who has been in the front office with the Sixers and the Nets. Let's start with you, Billy. You've been on the phone with Sam Presti. He just pulled off one of the stealth move of all stealth moves here, landing Paul George. Nobody saw it coming. What's it like dealing with Sam Presti on the phone?
Well, that's the one thing. Sam likes secrecy. Sam doesn't want things out there. So like Dave said, he was talking to Sacramento. He talks to multiple teams, but he doesn't want it out there. And then he decides what's the best deal. And that's when deals get done, when it's not in the paper. And so that's one thing he did. He probably been talking to Indiana for a while, working on it, seeing what else he can get from Sacramento and other people. But when he saw this on the table, and Pritchard probably knew, okay, I want to get this done now, they agreed and got it done quietly and quickly.
All right, DA, we're going to get back to DA here in a bit with some more news in a moment. But 3D, everything is as Daryl Morey put it, a weapons race. So let's look at this arms race and say, you know what Golden State is, right? You know what Cleveland is. You know what Houston has begun to do. What does Paul George and Russell Westbrook do for you in the landscape of 17-18 basketball?
Well, I think it takes so much pressure off of Russell now. He can say, wow, I don't have to do everything.
Well, yes, will he accept that?
I think he will when you bring in a guy like Paul George. If you're bringing in some guys with some fluff and not arguably one of the best two-way players we see every night, then maybe not. So when he walks through the door, he can say, you know what, offensively, hey, Paul George, go get us a bucket. Go get us to the free throw line. Go take over a quarter for us. He can do that. I think some of that pressure will go.
Well, also, remember, everybody talked about when they took Russell out of the game, the team dropped. Now you have Paul George in the game, so when you take him out of the game, Russell, Paul George can take over. And the fact, you look at Oladipo as a nice player, but he wasn't a great shooter. Right. Now you have Paul George. When he penetrates and kicks, now you got somebody who's going to knock that shot down. Also, and he's a guy that gets the respect of the other referees and the players on the floor. So that, I think about when they played in the playoffs. They had a violent fight. They played hard. Now you add another player to them, and I don't think Sam's done, but he's not going to do anything crazy. But he's not done. He's going to keep tinkering and try to make this team better.
You know, thinking back to USA basketball last year and talking to Coach K, a guy you know pretty well at Duke, and he was comparing Paul George to the closest thing he's seen since Grant Hill, the versatility, the ability. He's not known as a ball handler, right? But somebody, Oladipo, they wanted to put the ball in his hands, and sometimes it just didn't work very effectively.
Late game situations, how many times we say, Russell, who are you passing to your point? Oladipo's not knocking down shots. But when in doubt, you know if you give Paul George the ball, he can get to his spot or get fouled. That takes so much pressure off of Coach Donovan, where now, late game situations, you can give the ball to Paul, something good can happen.
But they struggled with Durant, and we're not ready to say Paul George is a better player than Kevin Durant, right?
It's a different style. Yeah. Okay. It's a different style, and I think that's what we have to get used to. But I think when you put all these guys on the table, you say to yourself, can Paul George make everyone else better? And I think that's what Russell showed us. Now you have another guy that can do that. That's just way more easier late game.
And if you think about this, Sam took Ibaka, traded into Orlando, got Oladipo in a pick, and now he's taking that and was able to get Paul George. So he before he knew he was going to lose Ibaka, he moved him because he didn't, wasn't going to re-sign him, and was able to get an asset and move it on to get another player. So he was thinking far ahead that Ibaka's not in my future plans. I got to get a younger player, sign him to a contract, and now he's a tradable asset.
Quickly, I want to get your thoughts with the way we were going to start the show. predicting that this has become trade season, not free agent season. Why the seismic shift? Why did the general managers get together and say, we're going to blow up how we formulate a roster?
Well, because I think this free agent class is not as good as it was last summer. So if people are looking at it, all right, there's only a certain amount of money out there. Who are you going to sign? There's only a couple of guys going to pick places. So you look at who is possibly going to be available. Chris Paul, Jimmy Butler. So you try to acquire those guys, and you try to do it before free agency. So now you know, okay, we got a player. Now we can plan on who else we're going to sign to fill out the roster.
Appropriately enough, fireworks to start the 4th of July holiday weekend. Paul George is headed to Oklahoma City to team with Russell Westbrook. We've got a very special breaking news update as we get even closer to the witching hour when free agency, which is supposed to be the story this time of the year, is put on the back burner. We've got a whole lot of stories for you, tell you how Sam Presti got it done, getting Paul George to the Thunder. Also tell you about Blake Griffin's decision to stay in L.A. Also, all the other rumors happening. Andre Iguodala in a meeting as we speak. We'll take you coast to coast. We've got reporters all over the country. Plus, we've got a bunch of guys here in the studio that you'll see in a moment. But let's go to Orlando. Reason being is that the Oklahoma City Thunder are in the Orlando Summer League getting ready for action this weekend. Fred Katz is there from the Norman Transcript covering the team. Fred, how about this? Paul George wanted to go to L.A. Instead, he got himself another LA guy to play with this upcoming season.
Well, it's definitely something. I mean, look, if you looked at the Thunder's roster from this past season, and you could be snarky about it or you could be serious about it, but it was true. They had all of these pieces, and the pieces didn't quite fit, and the one that they were missing was, hey, you know what? They could use one really big two-way wing who can score and play make, because they just happened to lose that one guy last summer. And now, obviously, they got Paul George, who is just a tremendous player and can do a lot of those similar things, and he defends and he scores, and it's an incredible ad to get when they're waiting to hear back from Russell Westbrook about an extension.
Right. Well, that's where we're going to go next. That was going to be the big story up until about 20 minutes ago when this story was first broken by ESPN. And we're still learning the particulars of this trade. We're going to bring in our capologist here in a couple of moments to really break it down and explain how it happened. Essentially, we understand it's Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, the first-round pick from last year that got traded from Orlando in that blockbuster draft night deal. But the story tonight was, how was Sam Presti going to react if he put a $200 million offer on the table for Russell Westbrook after midnight, and Westbrook would decline to sign that? And that the thought was what in OKC, Fred?
Well, the thought was, where do they head from there? I mean, it's funny. Russell Westbrook went into Sam Presti's office right after Kevin Durant signed, and notoriously the first thing he asked was, what's next? And the question would kind of be the same, but in a far more somber tone for this organization if Russell Westbrook wasn't going to sign. We still don't know for sure what Westbrook is going to do, whether he's going to sign, whether he's not going to sign, but I don't think the Thunder are necessarily expecting Paul George to stay, considering he's been so open about wanting to go to Los Angeles, and the chances are at least realistic that this is a one-year thing, and they had to make a move like this in that sort of mentality. But with Westbrook coming up and the possibility of them not knowing what they're going to do with him, I mean, I don't think this is a move that they're going to make if they were pessimistic about Russell Westbrook signing that extension.
So one of the themes of the night that we're going to talk about in every deal that either gets done, gets rumored to get done, or doesn't get done is that everything has a domino effect in today's NBA. There's been a seismic change, and it really started with Daryl Morey acquiring Chris Paul the other day in roster construction philosophy, right? So you see Russell Westbrook, you see Paul George, and you think major upgrade. I don't know, though, if most people think that's good enough to compete with the Warriors. So you can't think Sam Presti's done, Fred.
No, I don't think you do think that he's done. And what's interesting about this deal is the Thunder aren't just getting talent in Paul George. They actually took some money off their books for 2017-18 for the upcoming season. They took about $4 million off the books. Now they're over the salary cap still, so it's not like they're going to be able to go out and get spend a ton of money on somebody or anything like that. But I think that's money that could potentially go to Andre Robertson to re-sign him. He's a guy who they've always liked more as a two-guard, which is where he was playing for Kevin Durant there. They've always liked his defense next to kind of a big two-way wing next to him, and I think that he makes even more sense coming back now. I think their ability now, because they're going up against the luxury tax, I think their ability now to be able to use that full mid-level exception, maybe bring in a backup point guard, bring in somebody else. I think these are all distinct possibilities for them now, because if you've got 1 year of Paul George, this is a win now move.
Right.
And if you've got 1 year of Paul George, then it would make sense to have a couple other win now moves around it.
Fred, last one. Tuesday marks the somber year anniversary of Kevin Durant bolting from OKC. How much different do you believe the feeling is in the city, in the state of those basketball fans today than it was nearly 1 year ago?
Oh, I think it's extremely different. I've been saying all year, I think maybe the most of all the amazing things that Russell Westbrook did in his MVP season, averaging the triple-double and taking the team to 47 wins and whatever you want to pick is the most impressive thing that he did this year. To me, the most impressive thing that he did was he kind of took the storyline away from Kevin Durant isn't in Oklahoma City anymore. And that was something that we kind of all thought. Everybody thought the storyline all year was going to be, how are the Thunder going to fare without Kevin Durant? What's the future of this organization without Kevin Durant? And Westbrook was so, the flash of Russell Westbrook was so incredible, so hard to look away from, that he kind of turned that into still a story, but, story 2 or story 3 or story 4 of the season. And I think now when you get a player the caliber of Paul George, whether you think he's top 10, top 15, or whatever, he's a 3-time All-NBA player, This is a team that I think it will certainly be exciting to watch, and it's certainly going to be interesting. And I think you have to imagine that Sam Presti has given a jolt of energy to that fan base. I mean, there's no question.
Paul George is headed to Oklahoma City. Many felt like, as we bring in Eric Pincus, our capologist again, many felt like if Paul George was going to go anywhere but L.A., it had to be Boston, right? They had everything that Indiana wanted. They had rotation players. They had draft picks to give them. What happened?
What happened, right? Well, the Pacers are patient. They don't have to make a move. And to what Billy King said, this is, I mean, he knows what he's talking about. This is a team that is right there. They're already the best team in the East, regular
Boston
season.
is, right.
Boston,
Right.
absolutely. Regular season. Now, regular season doesn't count, right? You want to, but they're already right there. Who else is out there? Now, they still have the picks that they've gotten, Jason Tatum. They still have the Nets pick. They still have flexibility. They have somewhere in the neighborhood of 25-ish million to spend. If they need to get to a max spot for Gordon Hayward, they can get there. They don't have to gut the team to do it. Now, to go get Paul George and Gordon Hayward, now you're talking about really trimming that down. But Hayward's out there. Blake Griffin, I think, might have been plan B. It sounds like he's returning to the Clippers. So maybe plan B's gone, but they still have an option at plan A. But still, this is a team that has a lot. I mean, they have so many picks. They have the Lakers pick or the Kings pick that they got when they made the deal with Philly. They have the assets still. They don't have to panic.
But Celtic fans were hearing that year after year after year.
But they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. They
Okay,
were right there.
But do you really feel like they're that close to beating the Cavaliers?
But how long is LeBron going to be there?
Well, that's a great point. And at that point, are these young Celtic players ready to mature? Maybe are they on their second contract?
Right.
But first, I want to get to something here to kind of get ahead of ourselves, which I think is important as to why Celtic fans were so passionate about Jimmy Butler, about Paul George. It's that it wasn't this summer. It's next summer that is truly their big summer, because Isaiah Thomas, Avery Bradley got to get paid. You'll start to find out if these young guys who you drafted are ready to assume a star role.
Right.
So they thought this year you could groom them with another star and you had yourself a chance.
Well, I mean, I like the idea of Markelle Fultz as the guy to replace Isaiah Thomas, but clearly the Celtics didn't agree, and they wanted a forward. They got Jason Tatum instead. They made that deal. But they're in a position where it's like you're almost there. You're almost there. The Clippers, we talk about the Clippers and Chris Paul's gone. They've been almost there for so long and just couldn't get over that hump. You don't want to be a team that gets right up to that edge. You have an opportunity to maybe you trade one or two kids, something, and boom, you've got Jimmy Butler. To me, Jimmy Butler was even a better fit for that team than Paul George.